looking back at the win for BYU over Cincinnati, it kind of just begins and ends with LJ Martin. One thing that Austin Collie said after BYU's win, and I think it holds true, is that I think he about redlined LJ Martin in that game. Now, I know after the game he said he felt like he could go play another game. You know what? 32 carries and I think it was 4 receptions, 36 touches in a college football game. That's enough. And I think the BYU understood that he was just rocking and rolling and said, hey, you know what? We're going to feed the hot hand. It's exactly what Kalani Sitake said post-game. And rewatching this game, LJ was at the peak of his powers. Guys like Todd McShay said that they believe that LJ Martin is a top 5 running back in this draft class. Some pretty high praise, and he'll have a decision to make after the season. There's no doubt about that. He has battled through a pretty insignificant injury to that shoulder. Any of you who saw him pull up in that Iowa State game, and the fact that he's bounced back to the level he's bounced back to, that's pretty impressive considering what he did with less than 100% shoulder on Saturday night, 222 yards, 7th all-time in program history. It's elite stuff we saw from him, and he was dishing out punishment. He gave as many licks in that game as it felt like he took. And I'm telling you, the Cincinnati Bearcats, their defenders are still going to be feeling LJ Martin for some time to come. He really, really put it out there. I have to say LJ Martin shined, but I also got to say BYU's offensive line, downright elite, it felt like, for the most part on Saturday night. I was really impressed with guys like Kyle Sfarcioc. I thought Austin Leusa did some good things. Sonny Makassini stepping in for Waylon Lapuaha. It was a bit of a rotation there at the guard spots, but all of them, they absolutely brought it. And Bruce Mitchell, by the way, I don't think we're appreciating Bruce Mitchell's story enough. This is a guy that just under 2 seasons ago was a defensive lineman who seemed destined to be a backup for his entire career. And now he's emerged as one of the best, if not the best center in the Big 12, if you go by most of the PFF metrics, etc. Really impressive stuff from BYU's offensive line. They really paved the way for LJ Martin, but LJ at the same time, his vision and his ability to kind of cut back when needed and see holes and bounce to those holes, really elite stuff. We saw BYU's rushing game back to kind of what it was early this season. Remember, at one point, BYU's rushing attack was 10th in the country. I know it was up inside the top 10 very early on this season. They got back to that in a big way against Cincinnati. And I got to say, that final drive when BYU put their 4-minute offense on the field and had every intention of just grinding out the clock. And some people were, Kalani Sitake kind of tells me, I wish LJ would have gone down so he could just kill the clock outright. But that 4-minute drive was about pure physical domination. It brought the quote from Russ Grimm, Pro Football Hall of Famer, to mind that there is no greater feeling in life than moving a man from point A to point B against his will, unquote. That is one of my favorite quotes, and it was quoted to me when I was a high school offensive lineman, and it holds true. BYU's ability to just take players and guys like Donte Corleone, who are going to be really, really productive NFL players, it feels like, and move them wherever they wanted to, it felt like, in critical circumstances. LJ Martin just carving up this Cincinnati defense, that was dominant. And I think that if anybody who watched that game saw how dominant BYU was in that contest, because they really did just tell Cincinnati, hey, we're going to run it down your throat time and time again. We have this guy named Bear Bachmeier, and this guy named LJ Martin. And what they're going to do is they're going to run for 6-7 yards a pop, and you're not going to be able to do a darn thing about it. Really, really impressive what I saw on film from them. Other things I saw from this game. We need to see more from BYU's wide receivers not named Parker Kingston and Chase Roberts. Chase Roberts removed himself from the game, and I think him being able to get off the field by trotting off the field, you hope it's a slight hamstring injury where it's not going to miss a ton of time, but hamstrings are uber tricky. Any of you who have had a hamstring injury at any point in your life know how touchy that muscle is. And I'm hopeful that him removing himself from the game was a precautionary measure. I truly hope that is the case. We'll see what happens as the week progresses in terms of talking to coaches and ultimately seeing the player availability reports that come out Wednesday through Friday. So keep an eye on that. But we need to see more from the wide receivers not named him or Parker Kingston. When Chase went out, it felt like if Parker Kingston wasn't the guy who was getting the ball, who else is making themselves available to a guy like Bear Bachmeier? I know that JoJo Phillips had the one reception that ultimately was overturned on review that got them the first down, but there's too far and few between plays from BYU's wide receivers not named, like I said, Parker and Chase. You need JoJo to step up. You need Tiger Bachmeier. You need Reggie Frischneck, who's now getting some time on the field. You need all those guys to show more on the field. Need to see more from Cody Hagan. I really do want to see more from these players and step up and make the wide receiver and give the reps that you're getting on the field right now count. It really is something they need to improve upon. Keanu Tanavasa, really, really impressed with him in this game. Followed up a very, very strong, if not downright dominant performance against TCU with another strong performance against Cincinnati. John Talmoyapeo and Nisi Purcell, they also really flashed. I felt like BYU's defensive line right now, early on in the season, BYU's defensive line was struggling to hold up, and BYU's linebacking core, headed by Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasker, Siale, Esera, etc., really kind of stepped in and made up the difference for them early on the season. Now the tables are turning a bit. BYU's defensive line is bailing out some of BYU's linebackers, and it's good to see that. You want to see BYU's defensive line eat up those blockers and allow BYU's linebackers to have a little more free reign. I still feel like Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker might be just a touch slow due to the injuries, the nagging injuries they dealt with all season long. And I thought Siale Esera, he was BYU's best linebacker on the field for my money. I was really impressed. He got in gaps. He shot the gaps. He really made impressive tackles. He took a bad angle once or twice, but that happens. I really thought the BYU's defensive line, though, they owned the trench warfare against Cincinnati. And if Brendan Sorsby couldn't fling the ball down the field, really, what else offense did they have? They generated somewhere in the 80-yard category in terms of rushing yards. And this is a program, speaking of Cincinnati, that likes to run the football if afforded the opportunity. So I was really impressed that BYU's defensive line held up. Kevin Young uses the term, we'll get to basketball here in a minute, stacking days. And I felt like the defensive line stacked another good game on top of a good game previously against TCU. And that's a good thing to see, is that BYU's defensive line is rounding into form right as you really need them going into postseason play. That's a nice thing to see from BYU. Other things I saw from this. If there's one criticism I've got of Bear Bachmeier's game right now, it's that his processing, especially in raucous road environments like we saw at Texas Tech and in this case Cincinnati, it can be just a little bit too slow, and it leads to opportunities for him to get intercepted. Remember the interception that Tiger Bachmeier ripped out of the defender's hand that was thrown right to him. He's a touch slow on getting the ball out of his hands to guys like that. The 2-point conversion is another example of that. Late in this game, BYU decides to go for 2 to try to get up 2 scores. And Parker Kingston immediately off the snap beats his guy and flashes his hands like, get me the ball now. Bear's got to be able to zing that ball in there right then. He takes another tick, doesn't make the throw on time, and the cornerback is able to recover, undercut it, and intercept it. That is a play that I'm sure that Matt Mitchell and Aaron Roderick are going to show in film review to him and say, see, Parker, he beat his guy. That ball's got to be out in his hands the second he flashes open on that. And that's a processing thing. Bear will get better with that. It's one of the kind of the freshman things that pops up from time to time in his game. He's absolutely remarkable in so many different ways. If there's one criticism, it's that. And I do think, given time, more film review, and as he gets older and more established as a college quarterback, he's going to be even better about circumstances like that, and you won't see him miss those throws. So really do think it was a solid workmanlike effort from BYU, downright dominant in the run game. And it was fun to watch BYU just assert their will against Cincinnati. It was really, really impressive to see what they were able to do in that circumstance. One other thing is they ran the tornado reverse, and it got absolutely blown up by Cincinnati in that circumstance. I think that the new thing that BYU probably needs to add to that play, because Cody Hagan is kind of the designated guy to run the ball on that. If it gets blown up in that circumstance, Cody has the ability, because it's not been there's no forward pass in that, it's a reverse. He can just fling the ball out of bounds beyond the line of scrimmage, and it's no harm, no foul. That'll be something I'm sure will be talked about with him, to have the heads up. And hey, if it gets blown up, you have no ability to get upfield and gain yardage. Just throw the ball out of bounds. And it's got to be beyond the line of scrimmage. Let's be very clear about that. But that could have saved you some yardage on that in that circumstance. But really, really overall impressive stuff from BYU. I saw from film review on that.